Welcome back to NFL SnapWire. Let's break it all down. The Pittsburgh Steelers season came to an abrupt and brutal end with a 30-6 demolition by the Houston Texans in the wildcard round. It wasn't just a loss, it was a dismantling. Pittsburgh looked overwhelmed, outmatched, and unprepared from the opening snap. As soon as the final whistle blew, the familiar NFL machine kicked into gear. Social media exploded. Talk shows warmed up. And before the locker room had even cleared out, whispers began circulating. Could this finally be the end of Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh? It's a question that feels almost surreal. Mike Tomlin has been the Steelers' head coach for 19 seasons. He has never posted a losing record. He delivered a Super Bowl title in the 2008 season and returned to the big game 2 years later. He has navigated quarterback injuries, roster overhauls, front office changes, and the post-Ben Roethlisberger era without the franchise collapsing. And yet, here we are, talking about his job security. That's where Aaron Rodgers stepped in. When Rodgers was asked about reports suggesting that Tomlin could be on the hot seat, the four-time MVP didn't hedge. He didn't play neutral. He didn't give a media-trained answer. Instead, he shut the entire premise down. Rodgers called the idea of Mike Tomlin's future being in jeopardy an absolute joke. Coming from any player, that would carry weight. Coming from Aaron Rodgers, it lands like a thunderclap. Rodgers knows coaching instability. He knows how quickly narratives flip. And he knows what great leadership actually looks like inside an NFL locker room. To Rodgers, the suggestion that Tomlin, one of the most consistent head coaches in league history, should be shown the door because of a playoff loss is emblematic of a league that's forgotten patience. But Tomlin wasn't the only coach Rodgers defended. Rodgers also turned his attention to Matt LaFleur, his former head coach with the Green Bay Packers. Rodgers and LaFleur worked together for 4 seasons, from 2019 through 2022. In that stretch, Green Bay went to the playoffs 3 straight times, posted elite regular season records, and came within striking distance of the Super Bowl more than once. After Rodgers departed, many expected the Packers to fall into a rebuild. Instead, LaFleur continued to deliver playoff appearances, guiding a younger roster through a transition most franchises botch. And yet, after back-to-back wildcard exits, LaFleur's name has also started to appear in uncomfortable conversations. Rodgers didn't hesitate here either. He made it clear that blaming LaFleur for postseason exits ignores the reality of the situation, roster turnover, quarterback development, and the brutal randomness of single-elimination football. To Rodgers, firing a coach because he only gets you to the playoffs, but doesn't win the Super Bowl every year, is exactly the kind of thinking that keeps franchises stuck in endless rebuild cycles. Let's zoom out. The NFL is obsessed with immediacy. Win now. Win big. Or be replaced. But that obsession often ignores context. In Pittsburgh, Mike Tomlin inherited one of the league's most stable organizations. The Steelers don't fire coaches lightly. Before Tomlin, Bill Cowher held the job for 15 years. Before Cowher, Chuck Noll coached for 23 seasons. Stability is part of the Steelers' DNA. And yet, recent playoff frustrations have tested that identity. Over the past 8 seasons, Pittsburgh has reached the playoffs 5 times and failed to advance past the wildcard round in most of those appearances. For some fans, that's no longer good enough. The Texans' loss poured gasoline on that frustration. C.J. Stroud looked like the future. Houston looked fearless. Pittsburgh looked stuck between eras. And when teams look stuck, coaches become the easiest target. After the loss, Tomlin didn't exactly quiet the speculation. When asked directly about his future with the franchise, Tomlin gave a measured, noncommittal response, one that emphasized reflection rather than reassurance. That was enough for some to read between the lines. Was Tomlin hinting at change? Was he frustrated? Or was he simply processing another painful ending? Historically, Tomlin has never been a coach who publicly reassures fans about his job. He lets results, and his resume, do the talking. But in today's NFL, silence can be interpreted as uncertainty. This is where Rodgers' comments matter. Rodgers isn't defending mediocrity. He's defending process. He's arguing that constant coaching turnover doesn't create championships, it creates chaos. Look around the league. Teams that cycle through coaches every 2 or 3 years rarely find sustained success. Systems change. Players reset. Cultures fracture. Tomlin, for all his postseason frustrations, has maintained accountability, respect, and competitiveness in a locker room that could have easily collapsed during quarterback transitions. That doesn't show up on a playoff stat sheet, but players feel it. Rodgers knows that. The same applies to Matt LaFleur. Since Rodgers' departure, LaFleur has been tasked with reshaping the Packers' identity while still competing in a brutal NFC. He's done it without tearing the franchise down to the studs. 2 wildcard losses don't erase that. Yet in today's discourse, playoff exits are treated as failures instead of benchmarks. Rodgers' frustration stems from this shift in expectations, where anything short of a Super Bowl is viewed as unacceptable, even when the underlying progress is obvious. But here's the uncomfortable truth. NFL patience is shrinking. Front offices fear fan backlash. Owners fear irrelevance. And social media magnifies every failure into a referendum on leadership. Mike Tomlin and Matt LaFleur aren't just being judged on wins and losses, they're being judged on optics. How bad did the loss look? Did the team appear unprepared? Did the moment feel too big? Against Houston, Pittsburgh failed that eye test. And that's why the conversation exists at all. Still, Rodgers' stance forces an important question. If coaches like Tomlin and LaFleur aren't safe, who is? If nearly 2 decades of consistency, a Super Bowl ring, and 0 losing seasons aren't enough. If playoff appearances during a roster transition aren't enough. Then what exactly is the standard? Championship or bust? Because history suggests that approach doesn't work. For every team that lucks into a perfect hire, there are 5 others trapped in perpetual resets. The Steelers now face a defining offseason. Do they double down on continuity and trust that Tomlin can guide the next phase? Or do they panic, overcorrect, and risk unraveling one of the NFL's most stable cultures? Aaron Rodgers has made his opinion clear. To him, questioning Mike Tomlin's future isn't just wrong, it's laughable. Whether the Steelers agree will shape not just next season, but the franchise's identity moving forward. And that's the bigger story here. This isn't just about one playoff loss. It's about what the NFL values now. Immediate payoff or long-term foundation. Aaron Rodgers just reminded everyone where he stands. That's it for today on NFL SnapWire. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like, subscribe, and let us know in the comments, is Mike Tomlin really on the hot seat, or has the NFL lost its patience? We'll catch you in the next one.